My little soapbox is to say that there are other types of AI that we need to be prioritizing, investing in, not necessarily to get rid of the artificial kind completely, but to really put it in its place. I personally think it's getting too much space, attention, investment as it is. And so ancestral intelligence is one thing that I think of as an important type of AI that has to do with collective wisdom, know-how, the insights and experiences of people who have to learn how to navigate the underside of society, who are constantly buried under the rubble of so-called progress. So there's the kinds of knowledges that grow in that rubble that are often discounted as backwards, as no longer needed, as in the past, that we need to center. The other type of AI is abundant imagination. Often the artificial type of AI is displacing our ability to actually use our imaginations and creativity rather than just plugging in prompts.
So when I was working at Google, we outlined a number of our concerns with these kinds of models being deployed and ingesting all this text on the internet with the assumption that this is a representation of humanity. And we know that's not true, right? Not only who has internet versus who doesn't, but also whose views are represented on the internet, especially those of us who get harassed all the time. We know this is not true. So we outlined these concerns. Of course, we know the end of the story. I got fired. I want to question the foundation of the field of AI, right? I don't even want to start with the assumption that certain type of technologies need to exist. AI is not inevitable, right? Some things you just probably shouldn't use AI. You probably shouldn't gather data on people. So the assumption is not that this thing has to exist and how can we retrofit it? It's more like, what should we build instead?
A feature of empire is they're made to feel inevitable. The way that I think about how we can actually contain the empire is thinking about the full supply chain of AI development. These companies, in order to do what they do, they actually need resources from us. They need our data. They need the land, energy, and water to power their data centers. They need that labor. They need talent, the AI researchers that are working within their labs. And they also need consumers to buy their technologies, to deploy them into classrooms, into healthcare. And all of these things are sites of democratic contestation. There are already movements happening where artists are glazing their work when they put it up on the internet, such that when an AI model trains on it, it breaks the AI model apart. And that's one form of resistance of, if you're not going to ask for my consent, if you're not going to compensate me, you don't get this data for free. There are activists all around the world that are fighting back data centers that are just landing in their communities.
Young people, by the way, are 90% of the world's population that live outside the West. That is the majority world. They live in Latin America, Africa, Middle East, South Asia. They're not asking us to create. They have a vision of what they want. No wonder they're leading the creator economy. They have a vision which is not going to be a replication, a reproduction of the past, and they're using digital tools to make that happen. When you're online and you're optimistic and open-minded, then you tend to play with technologies. And when you play, a lot of good stuff happens. So if you've paid attention to what's going on in the global South, there are so many little startups coming up from India, in South Africa, in Abu Dhabi. Lilapa AI, it's a for Africa, by Africa, South African startup coming up with hyper-localized solutions to local problems. Or you see Angami, which is a radically new way of doing music streaming. It's the first platform to allow AI-generated music, but also it's using AI to detect creative ownership and establish much fairer standards for provenance, which is one of the most important fights going on right now. Creatives are asking, how do we get a fairer and more equitable sense of ownership, distribution? They're not just looking at AI as an enemy, but as a critical tool to enable that redistribution. So this is basically the future of where music's going to be, not Spotify.
We thought we'd create an award for women to highlight and really celebrate, recognize the work of women who work responsibly, ethically, on AI for social impact. Right now, when you're looking at investments made in AI globally, less than 1% is invested in AI for impact. And I really think this is appalling, and I think this figure needs to be known. What is AI going to do? It should be there for us. It should be there to help us improve our lives, all of this potential in health, in education, wherever. And so we want to show what is possible, and we have decided to focus our awards on 5 topics. We look at work being done in AI and democracy. The next one is AI and peace. The third one is AI and media. The fourth one is AI and learning. The fifth one is AI and climate action.
When we think about AI, we think that it can only regurgitate the data it has been fed, but it can actually do more than that. They're extremely potent pattern recognizers. So if you say, tell me the biases in the stories of your data and in your training, it can also do that. Right. So when I was using ChatGPT as an assistant to write the book, to translate complex ideas into more accessible language, what I was asking it to do was to map the shenanigans of modernity. And it could do it really well. In my research collective, we've been talking about this wager. It's a wager to redirect computational power towards a scaffolding of humanity into this kindness, generosity, humility that will be needed to stabilize our nervous system, to be able to go through what we go through without the levels of dysregulation and dysfunction that are coming. A collaboration with meta-relationally trained AI could support us in growing up as human beings.
There are over 7,000 languages in the world, and yet published knowledge and online public knowledge are only in about 500 languages. Even today, if you access content on the internet, most of that content is in English. So what does it mean for the rest of us for whom English is not a first language? If getting on the internet is about seeing only one particular version of knowledge and one particular version of the world, that is not truly global, is it? If we want to truly reimagine and redesign the internet to be for and from us all, how do we center the design, the leadership, and the imaginations of the majority of the world? What does it look like to think about access as not just being the on and off button, but what we do when the light comes on?
We are trying to do something no one else has done. We know with a lot of conviction it will change the world, literally. I woke up every day, day after day for the past few years thinking that there is so much more than language. Language is an incredibly powerful encoding of thoughts and information, but it's actually not a powerful encoding of what the 3D physical world. And if you look at human intelligence, so much is beyond the realm of language, which doesn't exist in nature. We look around, there's not a syllabus or word, whereas the entire physical visual world is there. And animals' entire evolutionary history is built upon so much perceptual and embodied intelligence. Having such breakthrough success inspires us to realize the moment is closer for world models. It's that space in your mind's eye, the spatial intelligence that enable people to do so many things that's beyond language is a critical part of intelligence. But that's what makes the digital virtual world incredible. With this technology, it's the combination of generation and reconstruction. Suddenly, we can actually create infinite universes. Suddenly will enable us to live in a multiverse way, and that's just, the imagination is boundless.